So our next panel, I just love how all of these flow together, which of course is the purpose of this. We are joined by two wonderful women. One will be via Zoom. She got stuck with this crazy storm. They are talking to us about what we need to know from the clerks side of things, whether it's at the local level or higher. So joining us via Zoom, where's her face? Miss Julie Fries. I don't see her up there yet, but she's there somewhere. Oh, there she is. Hi. Wonderful.
Hi.
Okay. So Julie is a Fremont County native, having attended schools at Wyoming Indian Elementary, which was formerly known as Mill Creek, and graduated from Lander Valley High School. She worked summer jobs between high school and college at the county clerk's office, and she found that work to be really interesting and exciting. So she got in the mix of it, and Julie became election supervisor in 1982 and the deputy county clerk in 1987. And she ran for the county clerk position in 1994 and has had subsequently been reelected 6 times. So that's pretty awesome. They must love the work she does.
So far.
So far. Okay, well, it's been a while, so you're doing great stuff. And joining us here is Miss Karen Wheeler. And Karen began her 37-year career with the Secretary of State's office in 1985 and has had the honor of serving under 7 Secretary of States. Is that plural? Yeah, I did that backwards. Thank you, Renee. Okay, I mean, at this point, you guys can just tell me what I do wrong. It's totally fine. Karen finished her career in the Secretary of State's office, serving as the Deputy Secretary of State just recently, December, I think, right? That's correct. She started in the business division with the office, then transferred to the securities division, followed by a jump to become to work in the compliance division. And her last role as Deputy Secretary of State, Karen was responsible for all of the statutory duties and operations of the Secretary of State's office, including planning, budget, personnel, staff development, and oversight of service to the public. Karen recently joined the Wyoming Department of Education as the boards and commissions coordinator. And I really encourage you guys to read through both of their bios. I cut out a lot because they have so many incredible things that they've done. So take the time to read about these ladies some more in the program. So would you please help me welcome Miss Julie and Karen. If you don't mind, Karen, would you mind starting for us and just telling us a little bit about your life in the office for 37 years and what that looks like? And then we'll go to Julie and then I'll ask you some questions.
Sure. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, you're welcome to stand and I'll get out of the way.
I spent the weekend cheering on my granddaughter playing volleyball and my voice is not recuperated yet. So yes, I left the Secretary of State's office at the end of December. I retired after 37 wonderful years, serving 7 different secretaries. Sometimes it felt like 150 years, not 37. But I did start in the business division, and at that time it was we had profit corporations and limited partnerships, and that was all we did along with annual reports. Right now there are 13 different entity types, limited liability companies being the most popular. Out of the 300 and some active businesses formed with the Secretary of State's office, over 200,000 are limited liability companies. So that office also in that division processes over 117,000 paper filings a year, in addition to all of the online filing that you can do. I then moved into the securities division, which oversees the entire investment industry in Wyoming. So we would audit stockbrokers, brokerage firms. We also had the authority to regulate and prosecute white-collar fraud. So it was at that time that really kind of fell in my lap. In doing an audit of a stockbroker, we found that he commingled customer funds. It was a sad story. It was a woman who lost her husband in a construction accident. This stockbroker went to her and was going to help her if she got a settlement from the company. here, let me help you. I'll invest your funds because then you can live on them. Well, he invested them in his own personal life. And after turning that case over to law enforcement, I went to the United States Attorney's Office because the funds crossed state lines. And it fell in my lap that I then became a part of a federal white collar fraud task force sponsored by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we worked white collar fraud for 25 years prosecuting it. My partners, they actually became like my little brothers, were FBI, Secret Service, Postal, and IRS. And so that is one area that I will tell you, I really feel like I served my state. I was able to help victims who had their money unlawfully stolen from them get some kind of closure. You can't get their money back, it's gone. But we could hold those that did it accountable. And our record was 37-0. So we were very successful. We had a great run. And after that, I became the director of securities. We renamed it compliance because we threw the registration and enforcement of commercial registered agents under that division as well, along with notaries. And then in 2015, I became the Deputy Secretary of State, which was an honor to do and to serve under those secretaries. But I just want to give you a fun fact here. In looking through and thinking back on my history and the 7 secretaries I served, and I want to bring this out because we are really looking to encourage women to run for office and to serve our state and bring their leadership. The first Secretary of State that was elected was in 1869 when we were a territory. It took 94 years before a woman was elected Secretary of State in Wyoming. And that was Thyra Thompson. After that, Thyra retired at the end of 24 years. To this day, she stands as the longest serving statewide elected official. After she left, Kathy Carpin was elected. She served for 8 years. After Kathy Carpin was Diana Ullman, and she served for 4. Those are the only 3 female secretaries of state out of 31. And I'm honored that I got to work for all 3 of them. It truly was a privilege. But I kind of correlate that to what we see statewide, whether it's at the local level, at the statewide level with legislative races. Why we as women are making gains and we're encouraging more to run for office. We still have a ways to go. And so in talking to Julie, who I've known for years, and she's one of our most fabulous county clerks, I will tell you, no one knows elections like Julie knows elections. But to see what she has done and the impact she has made, I really, as we go through our conversation today, would really encourage everyone to reach out to those that they know that can serve their state, can provide leadership, and let's bring women back into power in the state of Wyoming. So sorry, I kind of went down a rabbit trail, and now I'll turn it over to Julie to talk about her incredible career that she's had in Fremont County.
That was a great introduction. Can you hear me fine? Do I need to make any adjustments?
Oh, we're good.
Okay. I'm really sad that I'm not there to see my good friend Karen, because I would have preferred to be there in person. And we were closed down even as a county yesterday. I know a lot of counties were in that boat, and I spent some time on Zoom doing legislative stuff, and my husband laughed at me because I had all my camo on and I was going out back and forth to make sure cattle were being fed. And so thank you very much for allowing me to do this. It's super important to me. I think back on why did I end up in the county clerk's office? Why was election so big to me? And the county clerk that was here for many years, Jim Farthing, I knew him, my family knew him very well. And I was constantly coming to him, asking him to provide machines for our student council elections. And I'm thinking back about that, and I thought, okay, this shouldn't be that surprising, I guess. But I did want to be an attorney, was my first thing. I had gone to Girls State and had been an attorney at Girls State, and I thought that very fascinating. But the funny thing about it is a lot of the stuff I do in this office is a lot of legal research. And I think that's what kind of attorney I would have been if I had continued down that road, just because there's a lot of times, well, most times I can be here forever and still go into the statute books and go, wow, I didn't realize that that's the way we're supposed to be doing things. So I did work back and forth between college here at the clerk's office. And when I got married, I asked if they had an opening. They did have an opening and immediately pushed me into working in the election office. At that time, we were trying to learn how to train election judges a little bit better, and we were acting, which I also went to college on an acting scholarship, and so that was pretty fun for me. So anyway, that whole thing was really intriguing to me, and I absolutely love elections, which in the last couple of election cycles, I'm not sure everybody can say that. It has tainted me a little bit, but a lot of people think we're crazy, Margie and I, my chief deputy, because we love elections. As soon as one's over, no matter how bad it is, we're already thinking about how we can be better in the future. So the county clerk does not only do elections, we do, I'm a clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. We run all the budgets. We're the budget officer here. We pay all the bills for the county. We're HR for the county. We do payroll for the county. We do all the vehicle titling, UCC filings for vehicles here. All land recordings are done here. And then elections. So it's a big job here, but elections, it seems like it used to be that you didn't think about it on the off years, but anymore we are doing that. And I share Karen's thought process on women running for office. You know, we have some on the commission, have had some on the county commission. I have one currently. I was around when the first woman county commissioner was here in Fremont County. That was Jane Adamson from Shoshone, a wonderful woman I learned a lot from. I was the second woman county clerk here in Fremont County, and a lot of our offices were held by men. It doesn't seem like I've gone through that many years of being here, but I have, you know, it's like 45 years total this summer. And so I have seen a lot of men go out of those and women coming into those positions. It's not for the weak of heart. I will tell you that. You have to be able to get kind of a thick skin, because it still is pretty hard, but it can be very rewarding. And so with that, we can move on to our program, and hopefully I haven't tainted you from not running for office, but encouraged you that it might be a great thing for you.
You know, I think we've heard that a few times throughout the conference, that it's not easy, but rewarding. And I think these ladies, you got it, right? You know. Okay, let me grab my questions. I apologize. Since we're all really good friends now, Lisa had to leave and get water because we're out of water. So I have to run both. Sorry, guys. Okay. So I will ask you a few questions, and then we'll open it up to anyone else who has questions.
Okay, so this is getting more to the details of getting into office, running for office, those steps that these ladies may need to take. So where does someone even begin when they're thinking about running for office? Like, honestly, I don't know where to begin. So what would you tell them?
So, and Julie, chime in, please. First thing I would say is talk to someone who's run for office before. Go reach out to them, find out their experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and learn from theirs. And then depending on which office you're running for, that's where you will then go to the office in which you will file. And Julie, I know that you can, as someone who has run for office, you can certainly provide some information on that. But yeah, that's where I would start out. If I were going to run, I would want to talk to a candidate that's run, whether they were successful or not, and learn from their mistakes and their successes.
That's a really good point. I've had some tough races, you know, from the very first one. Two of us from the office that had been here a number of years. And so that one was really hard because we both knew the job, but I've had some other races where the people don't know the job, but they will spout a lot of things about what they perceive the job is, and it's not correct. And then people believe that. So I really encourage you, if you think you want to be a treasurer, a clerk, a legislator, find out what they do from somebody who does it, and make sure you know exactly what you're running for. Number one, you want to be okay being that if you're elected. Number two, you want to be ready for forums and be knowledgeable about the issues, because it can sound pretty fun to say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But in reality, you get into the office and you can't, then there's a lot of disappointment from your voters. So that's my biggest one, is really know what you're running for. And I agree with Karen that you find somebody who's maybe run for office. Either way, one lost, what were the pitfalls, what were the things? It costs money. So be prepared to handle that yourself if you're not willing to go out and round up money as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about money, but those are a couple things I want to make sure you're well aware of.
Okay, thank you. So what are some of the critical dates if we were going to run for office that you ladies know that we need to pay attention to?
So I can start just at the state level, and I know Julie's got more at the county level. Because first of all, let me back up just a little bit. Where you file to run for office depends on your race that you're running for, the office you're running for. So the Secretary of State's office, if you are running as one of the top 5 elected or a legislator, you will file to run in an office. Anything at a local level, you will file either the county clerk or the city clerk. And Julie can obviously tell you a heck of a lot more about that than I can. But to run for office, there are specific dates, and I will tell you, I printed it out and I didn't get it folded quite well. But out on the Secretary of State's website is our handy dandy campaign guide for candidates. This is from 2022. The information really stays the same except for the filing dates. And so for 2024, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for your statewide elected, your legislative races, it is May 16th through the end of May. It's a 15-day period. So that is when you file for 2024. But I'm going to back up just a little bit to what Julie said a little bit ago. As someone who has gone through 7 secretaries of state, she's absolutely right. Know the office you're running for. Because if you get out there and you campaign on an issue that is not relative to the office you're running for, you've set yourself and your staff up for failure. Go talk to the current staff. Go reach out to the current office holder if they're not running again. I mean, obviously don't reach out to them if you're going to run against them, but if they're not running again, talk to them. Because I will tell you, everyone that has run for the secretary's office, they have about a 600,000 foot level. Oh, the office does business. The office does elections. The office does a heck of a lot more than that. And I'm sure Julie can attest to that with the county clerk's office. There's so many statutory minute details about the office that whatever you run for, even if it's for the legislature, know what you're running for. It's very important to do that. So there are certain filing dates. And again, this handy dandy little brochure, if you're running for certain offices, it'll tell you where you need to file to run for that office. And so Julie, please fill in all the gaps that I've left.
Great. So there's great stuff on the Secretary of State's website. We have a new secretary, so I'm not quite sure that's going to stay that way, but what was put out there, if you go and look now, hopefully that's still out there at this point. I also gave you a handout, and don't hold other clerks to this. I'm kind of a educational clerk. I like people to understand probably more than people want to know. So I do a candidate school, and what I gave you in your handout is my candidate school outline. But in there, you'll see on that first page, it says notice of important election campaign reporting requirements. These are the things that are going to get you in trouble if you don't do them. I'm currently still dealing with about 4 people who have not filed those receipts and expenditure reports that are due at the end of the process. And there are, there's fines that are with that, and they are just not listening. Our county attorney's even writing to them, which usually kind of sparks something. But and it says right here, this is your official notice. By statute, they made it that county clerks have to give this out to you so that you're aware of all those deadlines. We also, in our office, we have you mark off that you got them. We make you sign off that you got the campaign guides and everything. When you file in the municipalities, they don't give you all that stuff because you file your receipts and expenditures with us, which is kind of confusing because you start somewhere and then you have to file your stuff somewhere else. But we also send them packets as soon as we get them and have them send back a form that says, yep, I've got all these things. So I know everybody there in person, I see on the chat that they're asking how to get a copy electronically. And she's probably gonna handle that one for you, but those are really important, these things that are in, hey, don't forget these things. And this is a 2022, we haven't started the 2024 stuff yet.
And I will just feed back a little bit on what Julie said. It's absolutely important, your campaign finance reports. We changed the law. Julie, I think it was in 16 or 17 that we did that to assess the fine.
Right.
It's in the law, it said that you have a certain date you have to file it by. And if you don't, then, and I'm not sure what you did at the county level, but at the Secretary of State's level, we had to provide a list to the Attorney General. Well, then what happens? Nothing. We never had the then what in it. So we revised the law that if they aren't filed, we can issue an administrative order to that candidate assessing a fine. But we also put in there that for a good cause, we could waive that fine, because we know that when you're a candidate, you get busy, things fall through the cracks. So we made sure we had that safety net. And I can tell you, we have issued orders in the Secretary of State's office. We also have waived the fine because there were extenuating circumstances. So, and Julie, I'm not sure what you do at the county level with that.
So I feel a little stronger about it here, because we get that paper out to you, and then our staff during the election process reminds you by email, sends you it by mail if you don't have an email. I mean, there's a lot of reminders of that. And then when the county attorney has sent you 2 notices and you don't respond at all, that is like anything else you do in life. If you didn't make your payment at the bank and you're just not talking to them, well, they're not going to be real happy with you. So make sure if you have those extenuating circumstances, I have not had any of those that we have waived, because nobody in my view of where I'm at, they aren't notifying us. And I will guarantee you every single the ones I have right now did not spend a dime. So that's the misnomer, and we go through it pretty heavily. It doesn't matter if you spend any money, win, lose, or draw, spend a bunch of money, it does not matter. Everybody must file. And so in my case, they get a lot of warnings to say, please at least contact us. And then we fine them. I know we have fined 1 person. I don't know what's going to happen with these 4 because they just are not responding at all. So.
Okay.
Thank you. I was going to run back over to the chat, but I will ask you the next question. So who do you think is really important to have on speed dial when you are running for office? In your case.
So actually, Julie, I've never run for office. So I'm going to ask Julie, but I would first say phone a friend, have my lifeline. But
You want to, and I say this about any election stuff, and it cracks me up. I go somewhere, I think at the corporation's meeting, when I get called to the carpet and I have to explain myself, and it's somebody in my county who could have explained something to me on election day that I could have fixed. So I'm going to throw that out there, that your number 1 person during an election season should be your Secretary of State's office or your county clerk. If you don't feel yet like you can talk to me or the county clerk for whatever reason, then you better be calling your Secretary of State. We have this information. If you're worried about, I took this campaign and or this check and it says on it, it was from Julie Freese, and that's what she told me. And then the check says Julie Freese's corporation. You can't accept that one. You have to have Julie write you a different check. So we would be happy to keep you out of trouble that way. Sometimes there are people who have done a lot of campaigns. Obviously, they'd be your second choice, maybe, of somebody to be really close with. If you aren't going to run your own campaign, you definitely want to be really close with whoever's running it. So that's the one I'm saying is your county clerk, Secretary of State, or your campaign manager.
And I can tell you, when I was in the Secretary of State's office, no question was too big or too small. We encouraged candidates because we'd rather you err on the side of caution and not make a mistake that's going to come back to bite you. And I know we have 23 of the most amazing county clerks, and they are all so willing to help the candidates as well. So Julie's absolutely right. Speed dial the SOS or the county clerks without a doubt, and make sure your campaign staff has those numbers too, because if you're running a big campaign, you're not the one that's always aware of what's going on. So make sure your campaign manager or others have those vital numbers as well.
Thank you. Sorry about the bouncing back and forth. Okay, so this is the last question I have, and then we're going to open it up to the group. So how, and you touched on this some, but how do the requirements for running for local office differ from the higher level?
So, and Julie, jump in here since you know the county and city level. But when you run for office at the state level, number one, you file your application for nomination with our office. You can either file it online or you can bring it in paper form. We will do both. You have your campaign finance reports that are so important to file. Those at the state level are all done online. You set up an account and you are responsible for doing that all online. So those are the important things that you need to file with our office, and I'll let Julie talk about what's done. Because I know you can file for office at the city level, but all campaign finance go through the county, correct, Julie?
That's correct. So yeah, filing at the city office, you need to just check in with them and see what they'll agree to take. Here at the county, if we have set up, like we have set up in our county, there's a public process to receive things electronically, meaning you're going to scan it and send it to us. We here in Fremont County, we did get that accomplished so that people can do that here to send their applications. You have to have a way to pay for them. Again, in my county, I do allow for credit card payments, or you can make sure that somebody brings in your money. You aren't filed until you completely fill out and make sure that you're qualified according to our records and that you've paid the fee. I've got fines on my mind, but the fee to run for office. So you make sure that that's all there if you're gonna not be in person. Obviously, we have most of our people come in person because a lot of people are running for office who never had before and they want to ask a few questions. So,
and I would say pay attention to the deadline to file for office. The last day to file, the deadline is at 5 p.m. We had during the last presidential election a federal candidate who thought he could file at midnight. Well, funny story, we aren't there at midnight. So he comes to the office and he literally tapes his application in an envelope to a door outside. And there's several outer doors to access our office. And to make sure that we knew it was there, he stood in front of a security camera and jumped and waved his hands so that Division O would see that he was there. And so we actually ended up going to federal court over this because he felt he filed in time because he had it there before midnight. I think got there like 11:53 or 11:54. So pay attention to deadlines. Obviously, he lost that case, but please get it there before the deadline. Taping it to windows and doors doesn't cut it. So I would really urge you to pay attention to when you have to have it there.
Okay, I would love to open it up if anyone in the audience has a question or anyone online has a question for these ladies. Yes.
Oh, here, let me give it, well, so they can hear as well.
So what are the fees? Are they,
Sure.
Great.
So
I don't-
I actually
Yeah.
get out of there here. Sorry. No, let me get this here. To run for federal office, $750. We just raised them a couple years ago. Your top 5 statewide is 500 or 300. Legislative is 100. And
County-
on down.
county is 100, county is 100, and I think the municipalities stayed at 25.
Can I ask a really dumb question? And sorry, but
No
why?
question is dumb.
Why do they have to pay?
It is set in statute. I'm throwing this back on the legislature.
Okay,
It is set in statute. It was really, I've been in that office a heck of a long time. It's always by statute, the fees have been in there since I've been there. So that was up to the policymakers.
Okay.
And I know the corporations committee has discussed and cussed this quite a few times, and I'm not really sure if it's set in statute anywhere, but if somebody really wanted to run for an office and they really don't have $100, I think that they could probably come to the office and see if they can get a fee waived. I remember the corporations talking about, they didn't want it to be that people couldn't afford to run for office. It was a little bit of a jump for us to go from 25 to 100. So that was a little bit harder this year on that for local.
So and this may be different, I'm sorry, but as far as the lobbyist registering, where do they register, and is there a fee to be a lobbyist?
So, yes, they do register with the Secretary of State's office. They have had to do that since Secretary Omen was in office. They used to have to register with LSO, and then just out of the blue, it got changed and they registered the Secretary of State's office, and it is it was a $25 fee. And it may have gone up. I apologize, I don't know that, but they do register with us, and they can do it online as well.
These lovely ladies back here said it's 75.
Thank you.
Thank you. Someone had a question back here. Okay.
What is the biggest violation that candidates make in terms of filing that you guys see? Missed filings? If that makes sense.
So on local level this year, because we're not supposed to look over all of your documents and make sure it all adds up and whatnot. We do try to help people that way. We were struggling this year with candidates having people help them. And I'm actually going to work with our news media here locally because it got a little bit messed up. But so when they would want to put something in the paper, they would say conservatives for better government, for example. And then it would be that person who was running for office. And I would go to our files and we would have nothing under the PACs, so political action committees, that say conservatives for better government. So I didn't know how much money they put into this. I mean, it was just in the paper. So we would cut those out, and then we did notify the candidates and said, okay, it's not on your list of money, and you're not saying that you went to the paper and did, $300 or whatever. So who was this? And that was a real struggle this year. We haven't experienced that a lot. But we also experienced candidates who didn't make it to the primary, who suddenly became write-in candidates, who are now, once you do that, here's something I learned about that. First of all, if somebody uses your name, so let's say I lost and I don't want to have anything to do with it, and people are putting me in as a write-in, that's a violation of the law. You have to have my written permission to allow you to do that for me. And I don't think there's a lot of people that know that, because I brought that to a couple people's attention and they went, oh, I didn't know that. So our county attorney didn't go after these people. He basically said, if you can get them to file, that's great. But so I am going to talk to corporations a little bit, because I think, especially these ones that are saying, oh, well, it was just me and I didn't have a chairman and I didn't have a treasurer, but they told me point blank they received money from people. That is not right. We are allowed to know who put money into what campaigns and make sure they aren't corporations or some of these other places that cannot give money to campaigns. So to me, I think that is one of the biggest things that we are going to be dealing with for the next couple elections. I don't know what the fines would be, and I know that it's another misdemeanor or a felony or whatever to do that. So that's a big deal if your county attorneys finally, or I don't know, on the state level, if it's the AG that goes after them. So
I think the most that we've seen in our office, again, candidates that don't know they have to file. It's a misunderstanding. And again, this is why, and Julie was point on, when you're going to run for office, talk to either the county clerk, the Secretary of State's office. A lot of them don't realize when they're a candidate that doesn't have a campaign manager or anybody, that they have to file these reports. The other area that we saw a lot of complaints and confusion was, and I'll be honest, because these are all public records. Anything that's filed with the Secretary of State's office is a public record. When individuals start looking through campaign finance reports and they start seeing donations from PACs, and then they start looking on our website, you can research it on our website, and that PAC isn't registered with the state. Then there's a lot of confusion, and then there's allegations against the PAC, allegations against the candidate. But again, this is why you need to phone your experts. Some PACs, if they are registered as a federal PAC, don't have to register at the state level, even though they have contributed to state candidates. And that there was legislation, and I will tell you, once I stepped away at the end of the year, I didn't follow everything like I used to, but there was legislation to address that. I'm not sure where it went, but again, know what you have to file with either our office or the county clerk's office, and understand the contributions that you get and which ones you can accept, and why some are showing up as PACs, but they're not registered with the state as well.
Thank you. I think personally, this subject like stresses me out. It's fascinating. There's just, this one really gets me. Okay, we have a question online that I'm going to ask really quickly, and then I'll go back to the floor. So from Miss Rosa, she asks, what offices, if any, can you run for if you are not a US citizen?
So you have to qualify as a voter. So one of the requirements of a voter is that you are a US citizen. So we don't have any of our local races that you can run for if you're not a US citizen, because you have to be a registered voter.
And it's that way at the state level. There does get confusion for federal candidates about not only being a citizen, but a resident. So it does get a little confusing on that end.
Okay, because some, well, no, I don't even want to get it confused. Never mind. Okay, wonderful. Yes.
Not sure if you have the info, but to expand on that, but would that include like government appointed boards as well?
If you are appointed to a government board, then I would have to go look at the different statutes that govern that board. So
Yeah.
our city is for like the US rep or something like that. There's always big hoopla because some didn't live in the state. Well, you don't have to.
On our local boards that the county commissioners appoint to, there's several of them that we have in the county. There's only one, and I right now can't think which board that they ask. I want to say it's museum board, but I think one of their requirements is they want you to be a registered voter. The rest of our boards don't have that requirement on them.
Any questions from the audience? Let me see if there's any here. No? Okay, so I have one more I'll ask you, and this is more not about the specifics for filing and all of that. It is more on the happy side of, so you are now gone from that office, but thank you for all your years there. What was your favorite thing about working there for 37 years? And then Julie will follow up with you about your favorite thing about doing that job for as long as you have. Gosh,
I don't know as though I had a favorite. I had so many favorite things. I will tell you, it was an honor to work in that office, and there was never a typical day, no matter from when I started the business division to being the deputy. There was never a typical day. It was always something different, a new challenge, which I love challenges. I love to learn new things, and I love to solve problems. But I will say, you know, I touched on how I felt I served my state the best with, you know, the criminal work that I did. But for me, one of the biggest accomplishments, and it's a personal one, was because I started under Secretary of State Thyra Thompson, who did amazing things for women in the state. When the Casper office building was built, I said to Secretary Buchanan, you know, sir, there's never been a statewide office in Wyoming named after a woman. It's about time. And Secretary Buchanan, he didn't even take a breath, and he was, you are absolutely right. He championed and what I thought would have been an easy thing, naming a building after a woman, ended up not being an easy thing. To the point I did a full marketing campaign, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but researching Thyra, educating people on Thyra and what she did for our state, and the way Secretary Buchanan carried the torch to get that building named after Thyra Thompson, and the day that we held the grand opening in Casper, and her remaining family members and grandchildren were there. It was so touching for me that we finally were able to honor a woman, and so many women in Wyoming deserve to be honored, but your longest serving statewide elected as a woman who did so much for our state. And to have it named after her, I jokingly said to Secretary Buchanan, well, now I can retire. And he said, no, you're giving me 4 more years. Little did we know that he'd go become a judge, which I will say, he's an incredible, incredible judge, and he's where he belongs. So that to me, probably was one of the most personal memories that I have, and
That's
that
very
meant a
neat.
lot to me.
Julie, what about you?
So, and, you know, I met Thyra Thompson as a very young woman in the business. I was, 26 years old when I became a chief deputy, which, wow, I was never dreamed that would be something, but before that, I had met her and just was in awe about her. And when Jane Adamson came on as a county commissioner, learned a lot from her, and also from Alma Nickel, who was the first woman county clerk here that I served under as her chief deputy. These people were very strong and very great pillars in our community. And so community service, even from Jim Farthing, from the very first person I worked for, public service is more than coming into a job and making it my way. I've always said when I campaign, this is my seat for only 4 years. It's not even really my seat. It's a seat I hold, and I work for the people. And if you wish me to move on from another 4 years, then I do it another 4 years. This is not my seat. And I don't like to, I try to take the word my out of most of anything I say, because they're not my staff, not my anything. I'm also a taxpayer as well. And I just want to make sure I do a good job for the citizens. And I have had, I've had great, feedback from people that they like how I run the office, how polite we are, and how well we do this job. Because people who have to come to the government to do their business, they're not always happy about that, because they have to. It's not like they get to choose that they come to us, but they're very happy when they leave the office. And that's what I strive for, is I strive to educate about government so that you're not surprised. I like to be totally transparent. I like to be available. I like to work above and beyond. And I just hope that I do a great job for the citizens and that they appreciate the public service. So the public service is a big part for me, and just knowing that I've done some, maybe got some things done well, or have done well things. Oh my goodness, have done things well for my constituents. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Did that make any questions arise? No? Let me check here real quick. Okay. Do you ladies have anything else that you want to add to our discussion today?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me. This has been wonderful, and I love to talk and talk about the office, talk about empowering women, and boy, let's get out there, let's run for office, and we can do some great things, because I have seen and worked for some women who have done some great things. And this one right there, she is, I call Julie, I mean, nobody knows elections and nobody has seen the history with your 23 county clerks like Julie has. And so she's an incredible resource as well.
Wonderful.
The
Well,
only
thank
thing
you.
I would follow up with is, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, I have run under both parties for this position. And so, it's a little bit different on each side of that coin. I will tell you this, the first time you run for office, plan on, if you can, walking to meet your constituents. First time I did that, it cracked me up in Fremont County in different sections. You go to Shoshone and they would come in and ask you to come sit down at the dinner table and eat with them. And Pavilion, they might just say, come on in, and they don't even know who you are. But it was a very rewarding experience to meet all of the people in person, because you really get a pulse of what the people are looking for, maybe for what you're running for. And if they don't want to, you can leave your pamphlets and say, hey, call me sometime, and you'll get those as well. So plan on doing a lot of things. Don't just sit back and say, I'm going to put my name on a couple posters and that's going to be it. Especially your first time out the gate, you're going to want to make sure, especially if you're going up against an incumbent or somebody who's run before, make sure you take a lot of time. Demand forums and debates. I don't see those as much anymore. The League of Women Voters did a little bit better for the general, but a lot of our stuff was decided in the primary. And so, and that's a lot of work to put that together. Sometimes maybe you just have to call your opponent and say, let's do it together and find somebody to be the moderator on that. But that's how people learn, especially in this day and age when you can Zoom and you can go back and watch it. It's super important that you make sure you push yourself forward. So good luck to you. And if anybody is thinking about running for office, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I'll tell you what I know and see if I can help out.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining us. It was very informational.
Thank you very much and for letting me Zoom. I'm so sorry. I would have preferred to be there in person.
No, it is okay. We're so glad you were able to join us. Thank you so much.
You bet.